Recently, I saw a lot of information online about this monitor and how Costco was going to have a deal on Cyber Monday, dropping the price down $100. So instead of the $449, it would be $349.99. I figure it was ultrawide, 1440p, 144 hertz. It was something worth checking out. Getting into it, I definitely kept my expectations somewhat low, just because I'm always one to think of, if it's too good of a deal, then there's probably something going on there. So ultimately, I do have this monitor next to me on the ground, but it is boxed up, ready to be returned. I'm going to go through and kind of show you some of the things I found with this monitor in case you're looking into it for whatever reason. Looking at some of the information displayed on the website, it claims to have vibrant images, AMD FreeSync Premium Pro. It says it's display HDR 400, which any reading I've done states that anything that is 400 and below, anything that doesn't have local dimming, is more of like a fake HDR. So you're basically just going to be really pumping up that backlight. So seeing that this monitor has the AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, I was curious to see how it would work with NVIDIA G-Sync. Disclaimer here, if you're going to try it, you do have to make sure you use a DisplayPort cable, and it has to be a 1.4 version if you want to take advantage of the 144 hertz, and that is not included with this monitor. But I can tell you, I plugged it in, I turned G-Sync on, and I didn't notice any issues, and it seemed like it was working just fine, even though this is not technically certified by NVIDIA. But I don't really expect it to be certified by NVIDIA because this monitor is a specific SKU for Costco, so I just don't see NVIDIA taking attention to that. Putting the monitor together is pretty straightforward. The stand requires a couple of screws just to get the parts put together, and then it snaps right into the back side of the monitor. It's pretty stable, but it only tilts. There's no height adjustment, it doesn't swivel, nothing like that. The I/O on the back side of the monitor, which is more on the underside of the monitor, has two DisplayPort 1.4 inputs, two HDMI inputs, the audio jack, and then of course for the power cable, which this monitor did not have a external power brick, so it is a plug similar to what you would plug into the power supply on your computer. After getting the monitor hooked up, one of the things I noticed almost immediately was issues with the backlight glow around the edges of the screen. For some reason, this monitor, it's got 4 major points that you can see, and they're not even in the corners of the monitor, they're more of kind of towards the center. It's definitely noticeable in the photo. It's not super noticeable in a lot of instances when playing games and whatnot, but if you are playing a dark game or watching any movies with dark scenes, those bright spots do stand out, and it was pretty distracting for me. This monitor, being a VA panel, also called a vertical alignment panel, it has higher contrast and everything, but it does suffer from black smearing. You can see that on this video here with the letters up towards the top left, and even in the other areas, the blacks. As you move it, they do start to smear, and this happens in games as well. Now, just for a comparison, this is doing the same exact thing on an IPS panel, which IPS, they have their own other issues, but this is showing what it's supposed to look like without black smearing. Black smearing is also often referred to as the Star Eater, and this is a perfect example. Playing a game here, Star Citizen, just floating out in space, minimal movements, nothing quick, nothing crazy, just little bits of movement. That black smear just totally eats up the stars in the sky. This is just also a quick, nowhere near perfect test using the UFO blur busters, but you can see here, this is without using VBR, you can see the smearing behind the UFO. And it's only visible on the upper portions. You'll see it more so on the top, a little bit less in the middle, and not really in the bottom. That's because the bottom one is a much brighter background, so it's not dealing with that black smear. This here is just a still image. I tried doing it in video, but due to frame rates of video, things like that, you can't really capture what it looks like in person. So getting a photo of it is actually the best representation of what happens here. So what this is turning on VBR, which is where Acer claims that they get their 1 millisecond response time. It doesn't really help. It reduces the brightness of the screen drastically because what it does is it introduces a type of flicker. You're not going to see it just with your eye, but setting up the video camera, it was very obvious. But here you can see, just looking in the center there, it's taking that really smeared image, and instead of having it be a smear, now we have almost 3 or 4 distinct cutouts of the UFO. Not as noticeable in a game that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's several cutouts, but this is just to demonstrate what that VBR is doing and that it's not really helpful. It's not a good way to try and combat the black smearing, and it doesn't really do anything at all as far as pixel response time here. So I know this is a very brief, very like surface level overview of this monitor, but it's just some of the things I noticed when I had it, some of the things that kind of bugged me. But for me personally, like I said in the video, it's already boxed up, ready to return, so it's not something I recommend, just because for me personally, I don't like the smearing that takes place. It was very noticeable in the game that I play, where it's a lot of stars and space, and it just really distracts from the game. So for me, it's not worth it for playing games. Now, if you're doing something like schoolwork, writing in a Word document, coding, anything like that, then yeah, the 144 hertz is going to feel amazing. 1440p at this size is perfect. I wouldn't really recommend going below 1440p at this size just due to the pixel density. But yeah, I guess it really just depends on your use case scenario. Are you wanting to get a gaming monitor, or are you looking to do more workstation type stuff for work, school, whatever it may be? But for me personally, I cannot get past the black smearing. So anyways, hope this helps you if you're considering this monitor. If you've got any questions or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat below, or not chat, the comments. But yeah, thanks for watching.